Okay, I want everyone to look up at the board. I have a problem right up here. So it says, a lot of trash has been scattered on the playground. Sometimes it is blown there by a trash can, and sometimes students litter. What could we do to fix this problem? Does anybody have an idea of something we could do to fix the problem of trash on the playground? Izzy. Good, so don't litter. Julie Williamson? Yeah, you can pick it up, good. Cormac?
To like maybe put like a little fence like thing around on the trash can.
Good, so put something on the trash can so it can't blow out of it anymore, right? Yeah. I'm gonna say put a lid on the trash can. Is that like what you're talking about? A lot. Julie Williamson?
Where you find where they litter where the students litter the most, you can put a sign.
Good. Good job. I think that's a good idea too. Just to remind people, because maybe they're not even thinking that they're littering. Yes, Soleil? Yeah, word of mouth, you can tell people not to litter. Good. Luca?
Maybe if they're doing like
Yeah, so if it was too much food, you could put another sign that said, no food on the playground. Good, that's like the same thing as a sign. Good job. Julia Lauder?
you could pick up fallen over trash cans.
You can what? I didn't hear that.
You can pick up tipped over trash cans.
Oh, right, because if the trash can is tipped over, then it'd be easy for them to, for the wind to blow it, right? Yeah, good. Good, I like how you're using what we know about the situation. So we know that sometimes it's blown from nearby trash cans and sometimes students litter. Yes, Eliza?
You could like put like a fence like around the trash can, so like even if it does blow out, it'll just stay inside the fence.
Anyone else? Something? Mirabelle?
You could like set up this system where if you see someone litter, you like give them a ticket that says no littering, please.
So they have like a punishment for littering? Yeah, that's a good idea. That would probably get people to stop littering pretty fast, don't you think? Izzy?
You can put a fence around the playground so animals won't touch them.
That's a good idea too, because you wouldn't want animals all around your playground, would you? Yeah. And you know that litter sometimes brings animals if it's all food. Yeah, that's a good point. Mikey?
Like put up some boards next to the trash can and build it into the trash can so the trash can can't wobble around.
That's a good idea. Yep, Julia?
Like what Izzy said, like some people bring dogs into the playground and sometimes they would eat the trash and sometimes they can get sick from it.
Right, yeah, and that would be like an effect of having too much litter on the playground. I think that's not a good thing at all. And plus, if there's kids on the playground, like you guys would know not to eat like an open chip bag, but what if like a kindergarten was out there? They might not know that you shouldn't just eat random food. That wouldn't be healthy for them. Okay, so what would we call this up here? There's a lot of trash has been scattered on the playground. Do you have a word? Yes?
It's like the problem.
Yeah, it's a problem, right. It's a problem. And what are all these things that we wrote in green? What would you call them? Cormac?
Like fixing?
Yeah, fixing the problem. What's another word for fixing a problem? Robin?
Solution.
Good, a solution. That's what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to talk about problems and solutions in stories. So I have a problem as a difficult situation, a question, or a puzzle. So sometimes problems look different in different stories. So in the thing that we were just working on, that situation, it was a difficult situation. But sometimes a problem can be a question or a puzzle. So I'm thinking about, in one of our guided reading groups, you guys might not all know this, but in one of the guided reading groups, we read a story about a girl who's kind of like stuck in this forest. She couldn't figure out how to get out. And I kind of think of that as like a puzzle in a story. Like she was really trying to figure out how to get out. That's another good example of a problem. And the solution is how the problem is fixed. So Cormac did a really good job. He said it was like how you fix the problem, and that's exactly what a solution is. So we came up with a few solutions to the problem in this situation, where we said we could, put signs, we could stop littering ourselves, we could tell our friends, and you guys had really good ideas about what we could do about that. Now we have a strategy to fix, to recognize the problem and solution in the story, because sometimes it's not going to be as obvious. Like in a longer story, the problem and solution might not just jump right out at you. So we have kind of 4 steps we can use when we're looking at problems and solutions. So the first one is to identify the problem. So in the first one, we identified the problem as that there was litter on the ground, right? And so that would be identifying our problem. And then we want to find more details about why it is a problem. And so we found it was a problem because it was blowing from other trash cans and kids were littering on the playground. So that's why it was a problem. And then Izzy and Julia said a really good thing. They were saying how it could be even bigger problem if the litter stays there and a dog eats it, or an animal's coming or hanging out, or if a little kid eats it. So that's why this is a really big problem that we need to fix. And then number 3, decide what will happen if the problem isn't solved. So that's kind of the same thing that we were just talking about too. So let's think, are there anything else that could happen if we didn't stop the littering on the playground? What else might happen? Julia Lauder?
The playground might become overrun with trash and we might not be able to play on it anymore.
Yep, right, good. Eliza?
It might become like rotten and everybody's stepping on it and then their shoes get like all dirty.
That'd be a big problem. Izzy?
People wouldn't want to play on it anymore because it smells.
Yeah, right, because garbage is pretty smelly. Yep, Julia?
If they didn't want to play on it anymore, the playground might get closed.
They might get closed and you guys couldn't even use it at recess, and that wouldn't be very good. Anyone else? Eliza?
They could like track inside the school and like all that stuff.
Yeah, no one wants to learn this smelly school. Soleil?
If the animal was near the playground in it,
Right. And Logan?
it can turn into like an apocalypse of trash.
Like so much trash, you don't know what to do with it? Maybe. Okay, then our 4th step is to identify one or more solutions to the problem. And we definitely thought of more than one solution to that problem, which I think would be, I think those are all really good solutions if that was actually a problem at our school. And so when we're looking for a problem, we want to identify the problem, we want to find more details about why it's a problem, and then we want to describe what will happen if the problem isn't solved. And that really gives us a well-rounded look at our problem. And then we want to identify one or more solutions to the problem. So we can think about them ourselves, and then we can also see in the book what they are. So sometimes if you see a problem in the story, so the problem arises, you can think about it yourself, like, what are some solutions to this problem? And then when the solution comes, you might be surprised, you might already have thought or predicted that solution. That will help us to recognize the solution. Okay, we're going to do another short shared text, but this time we're going to focus on problem and solution. So we're going to read a text together. And remember from yesterday, when we're doing a short shared text, so this short kind of text, it's really good to read it through one time before we start talking about whatever skill we're doing. So we're going to just read through the passage one time because it's short and we can do that. And that way we have kind of a background knowledge on the problem before we, or about the story before we go looking for our skill. So yesterday we were looking for plot, the different things that had to do with plot, and today we're going to be looking for problem and solution. Okay. This is called the Brave Tuskegee Airmen. During the 1930s, African Americans and whites had to attend different schools, eat in separate restaurants, and sit separately in theaters. The law that forced the races to be separate was called segregation. It was unfair because blacks had fewer opportunities for education and jobs. Segregation was the law in the Army, Navy, and Air Force as well. African American soldiers fought in their own groups or units. They were not allowed to apply for many military jobs. They could not become pilots and fly airplanes. In the early 1940s, war was starting. The U.S. military needed more fighter pilots. African American leaders convinced the government that blacks would be excellent airmen. So, the U.S. Congress changed one part of the law. It allowed one unit of blacks to train as pilots. This unit became the Tuskegee Airmen. The pilots were all African Americans. In spite of unfair treatment during training, they succeeded. They proved to be brave and capable. These airmen received hundreds of medals. Less than 10 years later, segregation in the military ended. Okay, so this time I'm going to read through it again. So now you have a background on the story, you've read it one time. And when you hear either a problem or solution in the story, there may be more than one for each. I just want you to put your finger on your nose, and I know that you found one, and I can ask you what you think the problem or solution is, okay? So while, as I'm reading, if you hear problem or solution, just put your finger on your nose, and then I'll know that you have one to share with everyone. Okay. The brave Tuskegee Airmen. During the 1930s, African Americans and whites had to attend different schools, eat in separate restaurants, and sit separately in theaters. The law that forced the races to be separate was called segregation. It was unfair because blacks had fewer opportunities for education and jobs. Okay, Ethan, did you see a problem or solution there that you wanted to share with us?
Yeah, because black people like can't do stuff together.
Yeah, so what sentence specifically made you think that there was a problem? Is there one that you want to underline for this? How do you finish it? Good. I think that's a problem too. And I'm going to label that with a P for problem. Just like we did yesterday, we're going to read it once through, then we're going to read it through again, and we're going to underline and determine some of the skills in it, so the problems and the solutions. Okay, the next paragraph. Segregation was the law in the Army, Navy, and Air Force as well. African American soldiers fought in their own groups or units. They were not allowed to apply for many military jobs. They could not become pilots and fly airplanes. Eliza, did you see a problem or solution in there?
They couldn't become pilots or fly airplanes.
I think that's a problem too. Good.
So they wouldn't have a good education for it.
Right, because they were segregated, right? Okay, so that was a problem too, so I'm going to label that as a problem. Ben, do you have something to add?
No, they have to go back.
Yep, okay, now for the last one, we have a few problems. There may still be more problems, but I think in our last paragraph too, what else should we be looking for? Sienna? Yeah, solutions, good, okay. In the early 1940s, war was starting. The U.S. military needed more fighter pilots. Mackenzie, did you see a problem or a solution? Did anyone see a problem or solution right in that part? Michael? The U.S. military needed more fighter pilots. Is that a problem or solution? You think that's a solution that they needed more? It's probably a problem, I think so too. What were you going to say? I think you have a smart idea. Yep, you're using what you already know because you already read it, but you're totally right that that's going to be a solution. African American leaders convinced the government that blacks would be excellent airmen. So the U.S. Congress changed one part of the law. It allowed one unit of blacks to train as pilots. This unit became the Tuskegee Airmen. The pilots were all African Americans. In spite of unfair treatment during training, they succeeded. They proved to be brave and capable. These airmen received hundreds of medals. Less than 10 years later, segregation in the military ended. So, did you see a problem or solution? Do you think that's a problem or a solution? Good. I do too. What problem is that the solution to? So let you know. Exactly. So one of our problems was they could not become pilots and fly airplanes. And then we already found one of the solutions. The U.S. Congress changed one part of the law, right? Okay. You saw another solution, Luca? Okay, what is it?
Like for the solution for that, or like they kind of changed the segregate a little bit. Like they were probably like
Yeah, okay. So you think, is there a sentence in there that helps you to think that? Because I see a sentence that helps us with that. A sentence that's like a solution to that problem a little bit. Do you want me to show you? Okay. It says less than 10 years later, segregation in the military ended, right? And so you're talking about how it could help end segregation. So it didn't completely solve it, but it was starting to help. So then that's another solution. Does anybody see another solution in here? I need everyone's eyes up here, please. Yes, Julia?
It took a lot of begging and pleading for the black men, and they might have been treated. It kind of makes me feel like they were being treated like babies and little kids when they're really not, just because they're black.
Maybe, yep, that's a good point. That would be a problem. It doesn't say it right in there, but that's a good inference to make, yes. Sienna? Yeah, so that's another solution, don't you think? Good. Good, so now we've read the story once, and we read it again, and we figured out the problem and the solution. And now we're going to fill out a graphic organizer to help us even more. Does anybody have a question before we do that? Michael? Quickly. Robin? Yeah, after we do it together. Sam, do you have a question? Soleil, do you have a question? Quickly. Okay, so when we're looking at a problem, we want to ask who, what, where, when, and why. So that's going to help us really see our problem. So what's the who in this? What is the who? So who has the problem in this passage about the Tuskegee Airmen? Izzy?
The black people.
Right. More specifically, the black people in what area? Or in what context? Charles?
Africa.
Okay, so the African Americans, yes. But I'm saying like within this story. I'm thinking of a place where they had trouble, specifically in the story. Yes?
Tuskegee.
Oh, Tuskegee, Sienna. Yeah, in the military. That's what I was thinking too, Sienna. So I'm going to say African Americans in the military. And what's the what? What's the problem? What's the problem? Who can sum up our problem in this story? Everyone's eyes up here, please. What's the problem in this story? We talked about it. We underlined a few, but I want you to sum it all up. Luca? Good. African. And why couldn't they? There's a word that we talked about, which is why they couldn't. They were separated. What's another word for that, Robin? Yeah, because of their race. And what's a word that means you're separated because of your race? Yes, Ben?
Segregation.
Good. Africans could not become fighter pilots because of segregation. What is the where? Where is this happening? Kind of already talked about it. The where. Sienna? Yeah, in the military. Good. Does anybody remember what the when is? When this was happening? Luca, you remember? Good, the 1930s. Right here it says in the passage. During the 1930s, African Americans and whites had to attend different schools, eat in separate restaurants, and sit separately in theaters. Good. So when is 1930s? And why? Why was this a problem? Why was this a problem? You might not be able to get this right from the passage, but you can think on your own why this would be a problem. Why is it a problem that we're segregating the military based on race? Mackenzie?
Because whites didn't play like with blacks.
That's why there's a, yeah, right. That's why they were segregating them. But why is it a problem? Why do we think this is something that shouldn't have happened? Robin?
Because,
Okay. Eliza?
because they weren't treated fairly.
Great. I have something else that I think is a problem also. So I think it's unfair to the African Americans that they were they were not treated fairly, and that's I think a huge problem. But I'm also thinking that some of the best fighter pilots could have been African Americans, right? We don't know if they could have been like the best fighter pilots in the whole world, some of them. And so by excluding them completely from trying to be fighter pilots, we could have been missing out on so many resources and so many really great additions to our military. So I think that's another reason it's a problem. Okay, now I'm going to look at the solution. So what was the attempted solution? So what did the U.S. government do to try to solve this problem? Let's look back at the passage that we underlined. What was one of the solutions? What was the attempted solution by the U.S. government? I see it underlined as a solution. So I want everyone to look at the solutions that we underlined. What was one of the attempted solutions by the U.S. government? Ethan?
They changed part of the law.
Good, they changed part of the law, good. The U.S. government changed the law to allow African Americans to become pilots. And what was the result of this solution? What was the result of this solution? Let's look back at our underlined piece. What was the result of them changing that law? Logan?
That African Americans could be in the military without whatever that word.
Segregation?
Segregation.
Yeah, that was one thing that happened because of them changing the law. Good job. What else, Luca?
Because they were having a war and they didn't have
Good, so that's the reason why, but because they changed the law, what was the result of that? So I'm going to put what Logan said. I think that's good, Logan. That African Americans could become fighter pilots. Good. And then it wants a final solution. So we have our attempted solution and we have a result. And sometimes then there's a final solution. So there's something at the end and kind of an even bigger solution. And I see one of those in this story. So let's look at the other solutions that we underlined. It says, these airmen received hundreds of medals. Less than 10 years later, segregation ended in the military ended. So do we see a final solution? So we had the problem, we had an attempted solution. What's our final solution? Delante?
The segregation ended.
In the military, good. Exactly, Delante. So segregation in the U.S. military. Yes, Luca? What do you have to say? Good, in the 1940s. I think that's a good detail to add. I like how Luca just used a piece of something directly from the text to help kind of make our answer even richer with more detail right from the text. Nice job, Luca. Sandy, do you have something to say?
Did it just between the US military or
That's a good question. So that law, that specific law just ended it for the military, and eventually they would outlaw segregation everywhere, but that was a really good question. Okay, so when we are looking for a problem and solution, what's the first thing we're going to do? We have 3 steps, kind of like the 3 steps we were talking about yesterday. So first we're going to read the passage once through with our partner. What's the second thing we're going to do? Ethan? Read it again, but underline and label it with problem and solution. And then what are we going to, the third thing we're going to do when we do this with our partners? Robin?
we're gonna do it.
Good, do the graphic organizer based on what you already underlined, right?
Yeah.
Good. Is anybody confused about any of those directions? No. Okay. I'm going to pick 6 your partners. Do not move from your seats until all of the pairs have been called, please. Soleil and Mirabelle, Julia Williamson and Ben, Delante and Ethan, oh perfect, you're sitting right next to each other, Megan and Mikey, Noah and